In this question, we are going to journalize 6 different transactions relating to manufacturing. Let's go ahead and start with the first transaction, A. $200,000 of raw materials were purchased on account. We will increase raw materials for $200,000, which we do with a debit, and we will increase accounts payable for $200,000, which we do with a credit. Now let's look at entry B. Here we are using $265,000 of materials. We are told that $250,000 was used on specific jobs. The implication is that the remaining $15,000 was issued into production but was not used on specific jobs. That is the definition of indirect materials used. So we will record the direct materials used with a debit to work in process. We will record the indirect materials used with a debit to manufacturing overhead, and we will credit raw materials for the entire amount used, which is $265,000. Now let's look at our third entry, which has to do with salaries. So total labor and salaries was $250,000, total manufacturing labor. $180,000 was traced to specific jobs, and the remainder was indirect labor used in the factory. The amount that was traced to specific jobs, that's another way of saying it was direct labor. So we will record the direct labor by debiting work in process for $180,000, and we will record the indirect labor by debiting manufacturing overhead for $70,000. And the entire $250,000 will be credited to wages payable. Now let's look at entry D. We're recording $30,000 of depreciation on the plant and the equipment, and also a plant utility bill for $13,000. Both of these are manufacturing overhead costs, and they both fall under the category of other overhead. So we will debit manufacturing overhead for the combined total of $43,000. For the depreciation, we will credit accumulated depreciation, and for the utility bill, we will credit accounts payable. Now let's look at entry E. We are allocating $118,000 of overhead. When we allocate overhead, we reduce the manufacturing overhead balance and we increase the work in process balance. We do that by crediting manufacturing overhead and debiting work in process. This is an entry that you will be asked about multiple times, so it's a good idea to emphasize this in your notes. Now we are to the final entry, which is to record the fact that the company received a bill for a website service for $1,000. This is kind of a trick question because a website is not production related and does not happen in the factory. Therefore, it is a period cost and not a product cost. That means we're not going to record this cost to any of our manufacturing accounts, and instead we would debit advertising expense and credit accounts payable. And that completes our exercise.